Hey, my name is ShawNshawN. I sell art on ShawNshawN.co and I do screen reading on ShawNshawNacting.com. Today we're going to review The Little Things. So this is a film by John Lee Hancock. He's also the writer, so you get that nice writer-director combination. You have Denzel Washington plays this kind of washed-up detective who's now a deputy in the outskirts of LA in the middle of nowhere. You have Rami Malek. He plays Jim Baxter. He's this up-and-coming detective, you know, the new star detective on the force, and he's being helped out by this old detective. Jared Leto plays kind of the prime suspect, Albert Sparma. Chris Bauer plays Detective Sal Rizzoli. He's one of the supporting detectives on the force. So this deputy, Joe Deacon, you know, he's working in the middle of nowhere on the outskirts of LA. He's sent in to go back to LA to pick up some evidence of cowboy boots on the case he's working. He runs into kind of his old squad in LA and they're like, hey, let's take you for a drink and all that. And they kind of catch up on old times. And he offers his help to the lead detective, which is Jim Baxter. It's like, hey, what about, you know, you want me to help you on the case? He's like, all right, come along, but don't get my way. If you get my way, I'm going to have to, you know, put your nail in the coffin. You know, we're definitely different districts and all that. So he's like, oh, fine, I'll help you out. You know, Joe starts finding all these different clues about different suspects that they hadn't considered. There was someone watching the scene of one of the suspects. And so he's like, oh, this is interesting. And they didn't really see that. So they start going down those different pathways to this lead character called Albert Sparma. And they start following around. And he's very wily and easy to escape detection and not being able to follow correctly with the cop. So he loses the cop. So he definitely becomes very suspicious as one of the characters. He's also very in tune with a lot of the cases that are being worked, so it's highly suspect. And they bring him in and they kind of have the case go awry because one of the lead witnesses sees him beforehand, so it kind of taints the evidence. And they're kind of having this back and forth between the fingerprint squad and the prints don't exactly lead up to the suspect they want, and then they're frustrated with the print squad and they're fighting back and forth. So it's kind of interesting dynamic there. It has this really nice character art of Detective Joe Deacon. He's this washed up detective, and they have a little bit of his backstory about how he was leading this case and then it went astray and he had a triple heart attack, ended up getting divorced from his wife, and the wife marries this new guy who's nice, does the lawn, and there's a little bit of contrast as well there. But yeah, he seemingly has lost it all and he's still working this case like a lunatic, so on his free time. So you're like, dude, this guy's lost a screw or two. So yeah, he has that really nice character arc of the background. And then you also have this character of the detective up and coming. He's doing well, and then he kind of loses his way completely by the end of the case. So you have this real nice dynamic of the failed detective coming to help this up and coming, and they kind of switch places as far as the old detective kind of cracks the case supposedly, and the new detective gets lost in the case and, you know, loses his way. So you have that really nice dynamic between the two detectives. It's interesting as well as the prime suspect, played by Jared Leto, Albert Sparma. He looks very suspicious. You know, he lives alone. He's, you know, a repairman. He has easy access to different apartment facilities. So he definitely has a lot of suspicious characters when they get into his apartments. He's been spying a lot of the cases. So you're like, wow, that's really suspicious, right? But then in a way, you're kind of like, it's like maybe he's not the suspect. So this is kind of interesting dynamic. You get kind of into the third act where you're like, is he really the suspect or not? You know, and there has a lot of really good dynamic there. And they leave you a little bit hanging. I mean, I think if I had seen the beginning of the film, that would have been a little clearer. But, you know, I came into the movie theater 5 minutes into the film, which I should have been in the commercials. But, you know, the local AMC I go to, they're just like, they literally have 2 people on staff and they do the tickets and the popcorn together, which is completely impractical because, you know, if I get there late, I would just buy the ticket and get the hell in. But, you know, you're there, you're waiting for people to fill their popcorns and everyone's butter and everyone wants this. And some guy didn't want to wear a mask going in. You're like, you're an idiot, dude. I mean, this is one of the reasons why the cinema wasn't able to run before, and you're not going to wear a mask. It's like... I felt sorry for the local staff a little bit. I used to work there when I was 18, so I feel their pain. The other nice part about the story is having a nice backdrop between the deputy on the outskirts, LAPD, all the different politics in the thing. They almost tow his car, which is very typical in LA. Your car towed or car ticketed, and it's a really problem in LA, so there's a lot of corruption on that side. That's very current, as well as kind of even in the departments they're fighting each other, like forensics is fighting the Prince Lab versus fighting, you know, the detectives trying to close the case at all costs. So you have that really nice power dynamic, I think, in the background, which makes the story kind of gel a lot. There's this thing of the killer's revealed in the end, but then you're like questioning whether it's really the killer. You know, maybe he was just a really good detective that wasn't official. So you're like, So that's a really interesting aspect of it. Yeah, there was a good crowd reaction, I think, is, you know, the people have come back, they feel more comfortable, which is really bizarre because you have high numbers for COVID, but now they're actually getting the vaccine out, so people feel safer. But it's like, if you're not vaccinated, you're not safe. But anyway, these people are just going out anyway, so it's probably going to be a huge spike from cinema related to COVID, you know, maybe, but hopefully they, you know, balance out with the vaccination going in. But it looks like the people are returning to cinemas, so maybe cinemas will survive if they've survived all this far, which I'm surprised they have been able to survive this long. But you know, who knows, maybe they, as far as my local cinema in Richmond, I think they really lost an opportunity, as they could have taken 1 or 2 cinemas out and revamped them to IMAX level quality and just did a few of those. They could have done 3 or 4 remodels. You know, they wasted the time basically, because they could have really shut those down, get those remodels done, because there's only 1 or 2 movies out anyway, so they're just showing reruns, which people don't go to reruns too often nowadays. So yeah, they could have just closed 1 of the 2 of those and get an IMAX theater 1 or 2 done and get it really nicely done. So they're really kind of pissing away their opportunity there. But they're just really cash cowing this town out, I would say. You know, they're 50 miles from another, they're 10, 20 miles away from another cinema, so they kind of have a monopoly in the local market. But yeah, you know, it's just a golden opportunity not to revamp your theaters, make them IMAX ready, so you're just, you know, capture that crowd. I think they could charge a little bit more, or at least get more people there. If you have an IMAX experience, it's obviously way better than just your normal old stodgy cinema where you're like, well, you're competing with HD, where you have a nice lazy boy at your house. You know, it's like, dude, you have to at least be that quality, and they're just kind of like, I don't know if they're really there. But there's not much else to do in this town besides roller rink, go out to eat. So I guess they kind of have a lockdown on that, but you know, they're wearing that model thin. But anyway, enough of that side tangent. This is a good, solid detective whodunit movie. I would rate it good. It might be worth a second viewing just to kind of crack the case a little bit more, especially for me, since I missed the beginning and there might be a little bit of elements there. But yeah, I mean, it's a whodunit. You're going to see it once probably, unless it's really excellent. I think this is B+, A-. It wasn't perfect. I think they could have led this audience a little bit more astray, but it was kind of really straightforward. They put enough of the material out there to kind of cover the ground and leave you kind of mysterious who did it. And then they have kind of a little bit of a twist, and you have this nice full circle of the characters. So I think overall it's pretty good. Hopefully you guys rate me good as well. And if you'd like to subscribe, you can subscribe below. And I'll see you in the next movie review. Thanks for watching, guys.